exercise. You won't admit. Prince goes, why are we? Because your Super Bowl, part of your Super Bowl team and your legacy is now going to the Rams with an opportunity to further his career. Aren't you rooting for him? And I've been listening the last 2 days. Whether you're rooting for Wentz, I saw something on IP's website. They're talking about it too. Eagle fans, it's almost like he's the bastard child. Isn't it? He does not have the numbers to be a great quarterback in Eagle history, says Steve. Well, I say he does. 16,811, fourth all time. Best passing season in Eagle history, best touchdown season in Eagle history. He's got the fifth greatest season in Eagle history. He's got the sixth best touchdown season in Eagle history. He's fourth in completions, Pro Bowler, MVP, winning record. He doesn't? Wentz quit on you. I'm not talking about attitude. I'm talking about resume. You're tying both in, your emotions. Not single season. There's multiple seasons. I cannot believe how some of you are, this is not a shade on Jalen. This is something that I would like to know personally, why you can't give this guy, and should he be an Eagle Hall of Famer? That's the question. Has this man put enough up to be in an Eagle Hall of Fame? Who do you think was more important to the Eagles' success in 17, Brandon Graham or Carson Wentz? Who do you think was more important and instrumental in this season of the Super Bowl, Fletcher Cox or Carson Wentz? Is there any more person on that team that year that was more important than Wentz during the regular season? No. Maybe no. No. Is he an Eagle Hall of Famer? He won't get in because you know why? One of the strongest fan bases and one of the most impactful fan bases would blow a gasket if you put that guy in. Who's that guy, Tone, that they just put in to the Phillies Hall of Fame and he hates Philly? What's that guy's name? He didn't want to be involved in it. What was that guy's name? He was a Cardinal. What was that guy's name? No one had a cow with that guy. And that guy hates you. Who's that guy that the Phillies just put in? And like he was supposed to go like on the Wall of Fame or something with the Phillies. Scott Rowland, that's it. He said, that's okay. Thank you, no. Scott Rowland. Right? Scott Rowland goes, no, that's all right. Nobody had a cow with that. No, not this guy who helped you win a championship. Still says regular season doesn't matter. Well, hit regular season got you home field to win the Super Bowl, dog. This season mattered massively in the 17. Hey, dog, you can say, here, LJ's one of those guys who doesn't look at Wentz at all in any kind of way whatsoever as one of the greatest quarterbacks in your franchise's history. What a tool. Love Wentz. We got a chip at draft capital ultimately. Gained Jalen Carter, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. Kind of all in a cycle, isn't it? This guy has no shot to get in because the fans hate him. Even though the end of the day, you should be ashamed of yourself, some of you. What's Hurts done more than him? I'll tell you, the only thing he's done more is that he was the single figure last year who almost won it. Greatest Hurricane quarterback, in your opinion? Bernie Kosar. Not Jim Kelly. Wentz had 13 great games in his career. Well, that's not what this says. That's not what that says. I'm not going to hang too much on this here. All I'm saying to you is that this guy belongs in your Hall of Fame. He does. He belongs in your Hall of Fame more than Nick Foles does. Foles had the greatest moment. Carson's had the greatest seasons. There's no denying it. His body of work proves it. Interesting. Interesting how you see him. Good luck, Carson. I hope you take full advantage of your opportunity in Los Angeles with Sean McVay. This is not about being a Ram. This is about keeping your dream alive and how you handle your role as a football player moving forward. They're not going to gauge him on what touchdown passes and all the rest of that stuff. They're going to gauge him on role, how he handles himself, how he is ability to be coached. That's what you're going to be handled on. All right. I thought about somebody asked me a question about what something that the Eagles could do to improve their football team. Hey, also, we're going to look at the midway point of all 32 NFL teams here in a minute. So we're going to get into that here in a second as well. I think it's pretty cool to reflect and look on some of the teams, especially what we said at the beginning of the year to where they are now. Kind of like a mid-season report on some of the teams in the National Football League. But I want to throw this out here about the Eagles. What would you feel about the Eagles going to some two-back set to try to spark some of the run game and try to put up? Now, do they have the talent to run the ball? How many people think Swift is wearing down a little? I got to say this to you. I see why Detroit moved off him. He's not very physical. You don't really have any physical backs. So I don't know you have the talent. I think he's a really good pass catcher. I think if I had to say this about DeAndre Swift as a runner, inconsistent, he's got really good moves. He doesn't run the contact. He's shifty in the lane, but he's not very physical. And that's why he gets yanked out in the 20 and in the red zone. He's not a physical back. The Eagles even look at him that way. He's just not physical. And some would say this, well, he's not getting the ball enough. Well, that's why the Eagles don't want to hand it to him, because they don't want to wear him out, because he's not a physical back. I think the difference this year between your running game of a year ago and your running game this year, you're not physical with your skilled people. I don't think you have anything. And Jalen's not running as much when it comes to the design plays for him to get out and be part of the true running game. You're just not as physical. You got to get back to the physicality of running the ball again. You're not physical. You have no physical running backs. And you're going to need that in this stretch here to close games out. You know, you're 8-1, and you know what's going to be important? Think about this when you come out of the bye against Kansas City. You know, Kansas City's got a top 5 defense. I think that's a top 5 defense. And you know what you're going to need? You're going to be able to have the ball in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium late in the ball game for this part of why and how you're going to win. You know what that is? You can't have 3 and outs, a poor coaching decision, and you throw the ball down the field, and then you kick it to Mahomes Mahomes is going to go down the field and win it on you. He ain't Dak. He's going to win it. You're going to need to be physical, running the ball, 14-play drive, stuff like that. You're going to have to be physical in this next 5-6 game stretch. And you're just not very physical. It's not that your O-line's not. They are. Your backs aren't. There's a reason Detroit moved off that guy. I don't think DeAndre Swift's very physical. He had 2 good games. And the rest of them have been good, using him well. But they're not going to give him 25. They're not going to give him on a consistent basis over these next 5-6 games, 25 carries. He won't make it. Penny who? 5-star. I love it. 8-1. Halfway home, dog. Halfway home. We need Jurgens is the answer. Guy playing out of position. We'll see. We'll see. Would you go to some type of 2-back set to spark the run game? You're going to need to keep the ball away from some of these guys. And especially when you go on the road to Seattle. I'm trying to figure out a way to get the run game going to help out time of possession here and not have these close games against the heart of your schedule. Would you say Shane is the reason Jalen is banged up this year? Jalen legs bailed him out like every game in 2022. Isn't it funny? He's more banged up this year than he was last year. And it seemed that he ran more physically last year than he did this year. Isn't that crazy? Last year, he looked like he ran more RPOs. And this year, he's more banged up. Isn't that crazy? He's more banged up in the pocket than he's actually banged up when he was running more RPOs last year. That's actually wild to me, for me to even think about that. He is more banged up now than he was banged up last year. Okay? O-line isn't playing as good. O-line is not as good of pass protectors as you think. They're really, hey, what's the difference this year between when you look at the pass protection versus the pass protection of a year ago? Your backs don't block as well, protecting the quarterback. And your quarterback's getting hit more and giving up more sacks. Now, again, you know what that becomes more of? It's so much. Get this. It's not the fact that your O-line is not good pass protectors. It's just more volume of pass rush attempts. Don't you see that? The grades for the group are going to kind of be down because the hits are going to be up and the pressures are going to be up and the interceptions and the turnovers are going to be up because of why? There's more volume of attempts, which means Hurts gets hit more, which means run the ball and with physical. I don't fear anybody you have on your football team on the offensive side except for A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. Sometimes Devontae, who, quite frankly, the first half of the season, when someone goes like this, well, he's on pace for 1,000 yards. So do you think having a guy like Devontae Smith and averaging like 59 yards a game, do you think that's dominating? I mean, are you concerned about a guy who gets around 59 yards a game in the receiving end? I don't know, man. We got a guy on the other end getting 140, 130. Then you got another guy getting 50 or 60 yards. I don't know. Probably still. Okay. But when I look at Devontae's first half, I do this. I don't know, Hunter Renfrow stuff. I'm not saying Hunter Renfrow's as good as him. I just kind of see the same numbers. Our running backs are only as good as our offensive line. Run blocking is going to take even more of a hit without Goddard by far. Oh, that is a really good take too, T-Car, because now you got to – now get this. So your edge rushers now are going to have – when they're running against the Eagle offensive line, who are you putting out there at tight end when you take on Micah Parsons and you got to run a twist on? Who's the end? Are you going to bring Julio down? Probably not. That's going to give edge rushers, because Goddard is exceptional in the run game. And I think he's a damn good pass probe tight end. Are you going to go with unbalanced line? How are you going to again, in this offseason, every one of those Eagle coaches are doing this right now. How can we, what's the one area? Okay, in case it's me, what's the one area that you would like to see them go into Kansas City having worked on coaching-wise? Players are not there. They're off until next week. What's the one area the coaches you think have to do a better job of once the players come back next week and get ready for Kansas City? Who? Okay? Let's start with the offense. Let's start with the offense because we're there right now, so let's stay there. What's the one area? Short intermediate plays, shorter passing game, quick slants. That would help the run game. That's a great take, LJ. Wait a minute, Brotherly Tough. Let me show you something here. Sometimes up in New England, when Brady was struggling with the run game and when he was even down in Tampa, what did they do to loosen up the linebackers and move the guys off the line of scrimmage? They would do those quick slants or those wheel routes, right? Brady would go to that short passing game, or he'd go to the dump off, or he'd go to the short passing game. What did it do? Made the linebackers had to get back a little bit deeper in their sets instead of moving up. Because right now, if you're playing against the Eagles, okay, and you got a decent secondary, and by the way, Kansas City, there's not a weakness. You heard Bill Moss yesterday. There's not a weakness on that defense. Linebackers are great. Defense, they got two guys on that defense are going to get at least 13 sacks this year too. Their corners are exceptional. There's no weakness. Okay? There's no weakness. And if that's me, I'm going to try to stop. Now with no Goddard, I'm going to stop AJ. And get this, I'm going to single cover Devontae. I have no problem with that. And I'm going to press him. I'm going to press him. Let's see how you move the sticks against Kansas City. How are you going to do it? Running the ball? Okay. So running the ball here, right? Running on second down? I think more running on first down. Brady isn't on the Eagles. That's not what I said, Barb. It's a fundamental process on how you loosen linebackers up. That's when I make a comment like that, I said how Brady would loosen up the run game. He would go to short intermediate wheel routes and hitch passes and slants to move the backers back. I think that's kind of what you have to do. I'll say it again for some of you. Good night. We aren't forcing any turnovers. I'll get to the defensive side here. Every team in the league isn't perfect. Correct. Last year, your team was perfect almost. This year, you're not, but that's okay. You got a quarterback that is getting better from the first 4 games of the year. I would make this comment to you. Even with the Jets game wedged in there, from the first 4 games and then 4 after that, I would say this to you, that he's gotten better every week. He's gotten better every week. You can't be each week, and we have proven that 8 8-1 and still not satisfied. I would say this to you, David. 8-1 is without a doubt. I say this to you. Unbelievable. How you're 8-1 and the way you've played on defense is insane. And with all the turnovers, he's fourth in turnovers in the league. With all the turnovers mean opportunity to score. And the way your defense is played, giving up all the yards that they give up, there's two factors. The way Hurts is playing better, and they're playing red zone scoring defense. They haven't given up points. Teams that they've played have struggled in the red zone against Philly. Now, is that coincidence? I don't think so when you're talking 8-1. I don't think anything is coincidence when you're 8-1. I just do not. I don't subscribe to coincidences when you're consistently doing it on a weekly basis. That's stupid talk. Okay? There's no, the Eagles have no luck. That's nothing that there's nothing, there's no part of luck in football. You get hurt, it's what it is. It's a physical game. You throw a pick, they get paid too. Coach makes a bad play call, that's not luck. That's skill. Quarterback throws an interception. There's a tip. The other guy is part of the game. Luck is something that you have when you win the lottery. That's luck. Football, getting hurt. So what, do you think it's unlucky got hurt 2 years in a row? Or has that become a trend now? Or you missed 21 games of your career in 6. It's a trend. That's who he is. He's often injured. Say it. Brian Johnson also has to give the O-line a chance to get going. After 2 or so runs, he completely gets away from it. How do you think they're doing on first and second down this year? You see, A.J. Brown just covers so much, man, because he's so good. A.J. Brown has covered the run game a lot. He's covered the ineffectiveness and toughness of the run. I don't think you have physical backs, and I said it a couple of minutes ago, and I'll say it again. You're not as physical this year as you were a year ago. I don't feel it. You're more finesse this year. Except with the receiver and what Brown's doing. Because then you get physicality. The most physical offensive football player outside of your quarterback, there's 2, Jalen and AJ. The rest of them, skilled, are not physical guys. I wouldn't put Kenneth Gainwell as a physical guy, and I wouldn't put DeAndre Swift as a physical guy. Hey, and there's not a chance that Swift has replaced Miles Sanders' numbers a year ago. That is by far not going to happen. You think DeAndre Swift's going to have nearly 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns this year rushing? No way. And then when you start telling me this, well, he may have that sales in total yards. That's finesse. That's not physicality. Jalen Hurts had 700 and 50 yards rushing a year ago? You think Hurts has 750 yards rushing this year? So if you have 750 yards rushing this year and Swift has around 700, well, you had 21 or 2,200 yards rushing last year with 2 guys. And you had 24 touchdowns. You think you're on pace for that? Do you believe that you're going to get 24 touchdowns between the quarterback and your backfield this year in touchdowns, rushing? You guys always want me to bring up the rushing numbers. Well, let's do it. I'm trying to tell you they're becoming a tad bit more finesse than I want. Okay? And it's kind of affecting the run game here a little bit. You're covering it really well here. Last year's 8-1 versus this year's 8-1. Would you say you're as physical as you were a year ago? Would you? Jalen has 316 so far. Who's that? Jalen or too many third and longs compared to last year? They still get a good completion rate and completion percentage on third down. Thank you, Peter. Okay? Thank you. Okay. 354. Okay, so 354 last year. And like I said, no. I didn't say. So you're going to get about what, 700 yards this year from Hurts? Last year, you had 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns from Miles Sanders, correct? Let's just say Jalen had 750 last year. That's 2,000. And what do you have? 13 touchdowns rushing? That's 24 TDs and almost 2,100 yards. Do you think you're getting that out of your backfield and your quarterback this year? Do your homework. Do you? Morning, what's the rule on a lateral pass? Can you do a rugby-type pass to an open player? As long as it's behind you. 7 TDs now. Okay. So he'll have 14. And how many touchdowns does Swift have at the halfway mark? He's on pace for 4. Correct? You think you're getting 2,100 yards out of your running back and your quarterback this year in rushing? Yes or no? Swift has 3 TDs, on pace for 6. Last year, the guy you had 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns. Completely underwhelming compared to what you didn't replace him. And you became more, in my opinion, finesse. Yeah, and tasty. And the majority of those came in 2 games. 2 games. Sills, did you see that Swift got fined for trucking the defender in Washington game? No, I didn't. Players are being taken advantage of by the NFL. What did he get fined for? What did he? I didn't see that. What did he get fined for? I did not see that. A lot of Sanders' yards were in mop-up. They weren't in mop-up. You guys were mopping them up in the first half. Mop-up? Mop-up is how you close teams out. Mop-up? Keep making excuses. You're not getting 2,100 yards rushing and 24 touchdowns from what you got in the backfield. Hurts is going to get his. He's going to be around 750. Okay? He's going to be around 700 yards, 10 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns. You ain't getting nothing near that in the run game from any one of those guys. You watch. Swiss numbers will go. The rushing attack is going down. I mean, you're hanging around the C-note number for the last 4 weeks. That's a month. Peter goes, our backs won't get Sanders numbers because vanilla Brian Johnson play calling. No, I think yet you don't have the talent and the physicality part in running the ball. I don't think you're as physical. Petro goes like this. They're going to get 2,000 yards. I asked you from 2 players. 2 players. You think you're getting 2,100 yards? Really? Okay. Not happening. Swift will not be a 1,000-yard rusher this year. Not a chance. He was fined for unnecessary roughness. That I did not see. The NFL fined Eagles running back DeAndre Swift $98.57 for unnecessary roughness that occurred on Swift's truck over safety Percy Butler toward the end of last week's win in Washington. You're going to have to, hey, I did not see that. I did not see that. Okay. Now, like I said, fact, 2 guys, not 3 guys, 2 guys. You can't hear me. We'll see if DeAndre Swift has it. Not a chance. Not a chance because they won't give him the ball enough. Again, if they were giving the ball to him 25 times a game, sure. Sure. But see what's going to happen over these next 6? You're going to be limited in possessions because you're taking on great quarterbacks. You're not going to have the same ability to have sustained drives because those teams are good too. It's going to be limited. So those numbers for like here, it's funny because, you know, we talked about Jalen. I completely think Jalen outplayed Dak Prescott massively on Sunday. And for whatever reason, still the national media is going about their business now. And I'm going to give you my take on the Cowboys and where they are at the halfway mark here in a minute, because we're going to start doing that. But Jalen's taking full opportunity as he's going into the season and he's prepared himself for these next 6. And I'll say this one more time to you. He goes 4-1 over these next 5 ball games. He wins the most valuable player award. Chris says Hurts isn't running the ball enough to get more than 600 yards. Well, you don't have the same numbers from a year ago, and the physical part of the running attack a year ago will not be duplicated this year. That kind of what makes it look a little different. That at the end of the year, those 2 men, they were dominant. Sanders, for whatever we think of him, and do I think he's a one-year wonder? I do. But again, at the end of the day here, they still accounted for 2,100 yards rushing. I mean, 2,000 yards rushing, both of them. And 25 touchdowns. I mean, that's quite a bit of production, don't you think? How many people think that 2,000 yards and 25 touchdowns in a run game between 2 guys is a lot? I mean, right? Don't be stupid and go, nah, we're going to cover it. You're not. The 2022 team, at the point of attack, was more, again, they were more physical. Hurts wasn't hurt as much. This year, they're asking him to throw, and he's hurt more. It's complete. As you get into these next 5 games, you're going to have some physicality here. Your run game is not damn good. Look at the numbers. I know. Do you really believe? I'm not going to debate it. You're not going to get 2,000 yards and 25 touchdowns from 2 guys, from Hurts and a back. Hey, you look at the numbers? Okay. I did. You're not. All right. I went alphabetically here. Hey, let me do this to you guys. Sills, is the Philadelphia Eagles at the halfway mark? Are they the best team in the National Football League? Right now, today, would you say the Eagles are the best team in the league? At the halfway mark, are they the best team in the league? Yes. Last year, for sure. This year? Yes. Yes. Okay? It's you, Niners, Baltimore, like that. Okay? Halfway mark, it's remarkable. I think it's insane what you've accomplished. With many, hey, would we not agree that this year's 8-1 team has far more questions moving forward than last year's team? Last year's team, we were all like this. Wow, what is going on? They're waxing people. This year, we're like, how are they doing it? Don't you see there's a different dynamic there this year compared to a year ago? Last year, I think we were probably a little more shocked and surprised. This year, the expectations probably dampen that a little bit too. For being fair here, there's more expectations. And so when you don't see something that looked like something like a year ago, and hey, you know what? You know what I'm doing? By the way, I'm comparing you to last year. I'm not comparing you to the league. You should thank me for that. I'm not comparing you to me. Comparing the Eagles to the Cowboys is a joke. Me comparing the Eagles to the Lions is a joke. Me comparing the Eagles to 2022 Eagles, now we're talking. That's the standard you set. Okay? It's your own internal standard we're talking here. So when some of you get a little bit bent, I'm not comparing you. And maybe I'm glad, you know what? I'm actually glad I'm not comparing you to other NFL teams. I'm comparing you right now to yourselves. So are the Eagles now? I'm not going to waver off what I said, Buffalo and Dallas yet. I'm not. I'm at the halfway mark. I'm at the halfway mark. Okay? I'm at the halfway mark right now. So I'm not changing that. I'm sticking to my guns. I still think the Eagles get to the NFC title game. Do they get to the Super Bowl? I'm still going to say no. Let me get into the league here. And again, Phillies won. Phillies won. Okay? I put these teams down here, and I did some work last night on this, and I looked at all the teams as we're at the halfway mark of the NFL season. And as we go down this list here, this is my assessment of where some of these players are and some of these teams are right now. Arizona's at 1-8. In my opinion, that thing gets a D. I think Gannon has been okay. I don't think he's been awful. They get Kyler Murray back this week, but they don't have a lot of talent on that team. Their first half is nothing for me but a D. Atlanta, 4-5. Robinson's not being used enough. The quarterback situation, in my opinion, is still not good enough in Atlanta, and you've got to rectify that. I know that they were hoping that they were going to land Deshaun Watson or someone else, but Desmond Ridder, in my opinion, Arthur Blank made a mistake. They should have went after and got a quarterback either in the draft, traded up, did something, but he's not the guy, dude. But I do think at 4-5, it's not awful. So it's like C hanging in there. Baltimore, 7-2, outstanding. Great wins against Detroit and Seattle. Todd Monken has made a massive impact on Lamar Jackson. That thing's a B+, sitting at 7-2. They're playing great football. That's a frightening team. And you know what, too? They don't really have a lot of deficiencies on defense. Their secondary's playing lights out. And I got to say this to you. Kudos to Roquan Smith. Can you imagine Roquan Smith still being in Chicago with that shit show? Roquan Smith has solidified that defense. And I would say this to Howie Roseman. Why don't you go get Devin White in the offseason and solidify your defense? Because there's a reason that Baltimore now has one of the better units. It's because you went out and spent $100 million on arguably the second best interior linebacker in Roquan Smith. He's helping stop the run. He's great in pass coverage. He's Fred Warner, man. You could go get Devin White down in Tampa, put him in the – can you imagine having this if you're Howie? You have Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, and Devin White behind those two, do you think anyone's ever running the ball on you for the next 10 years? Philly A1, Baltimore 1B, tops in the league. I probably in there, LJ. Why wouldn't you spend that money? There's nobody in the draft you're going to draft that you are going to find a 5-star LB like that in an MLB. Hey, no disrespect, dude. I'm sick of saying this about this guy, Nakobe Dean. Let's just say this. He'll never be an NFL middle linebacker or a Mike linebacker. You know why? He just can't stay healthy. I can't even tell if he's good. And he can't stay on the field long enough for us to find out if he's good. I'm moving on from that. Because you know what you can't do? You can't coach injury. And you can't build defenses around injury-prone guys. You can't. Sills, is he good? I don't know. I can't wait around here. I got a quarterback I'm paying $50 million to. I just invested 2 first-round draft choices in my DTs. I got an edge rusher I got to worry about whether or not I'm going to pay him $25 million or not. I got to replace Brandon Graham. I got to get 2 new corners. And I'm going to sit around and wait for a Mike linebacker whether or not I can find out if he's healthy or not. No, thank you. Dude, this is sense of urgency. Not waiting around and seeing if a guy... Get this. This isn't the Brandon Graham story where a guy came on and kept coming on and kept coming on. This is a guy who's always hurt. Can't wait around, son. If you're in the tub, can't wait around. Go get Devin White. You could pay a guy. How old is Devin White, by the way? Is he 25? You could have a guy in that position for the next decade behind those 2 dudes that you just invested in. How old is that guy? He's 25 years old, and he's the captain of a Super Bowl defense. And he's got a ring. I don't know, man. I might want to pay some money for that. Roquan's 26. Jesus criminy. What's Fred Taylor, dude? I don't think there's any coincidence that those units are good and you got a great Mike linebacker. Warner's got to be like 28 at least. It's got to be. I never thought of this. So Roquan Smith's 26 and Fred Warner's 26. And those guys are the Mike linebackers on the 49er defense and the Ravens defense. Tell me, wait a minute. If you don't think it's coincidence, okay, Warner was a 3rd rounder. Holy cow, John Lynch. And he's a $20 million a year guy now. Dude, look at those 2 guys. You spend money on the Mike? Hey, Howie, spend some money on a mic. Okay? Practice squad guys aren't going to cut it. Holy cow. Oh, man. Hey, how about this? Think about this too, Tone. Everyone, think about it. You put Devin White in the middle of your defense. Does that help your pass defense, you think? You're blitzing? Your run defense even more? Your sideline to sideline run defense too, setting the edge? Covering tight ends? Hey, George Kittle and the rest of them dudes aren't getting over on him. Problems in San Francisco, excuse me, Keon, the problems in San Francisco aren't defense. Problems in San Francisco are offense right now because they're hurt. Hey, and Keon, we'll find out how good you guys are too with the loss of Goddard here coming up in Kansas City. We'll find out. Every dominant defense in history had a stud LB. Who was the Mike linebacker on that 17 team? I forget. Who was the Mike linebacker on the Eagles 2017 championship football team. Who was in the middle of that defense? Who was that guy? Ain't no excuses. Excuses. So wait a minute. Excuses? Okay, we'll find out how good you are without Lane Johnson and A.J. Brown. It'll happen. Dude, Nigel was good, man. Nigel was good. Jordan Hicks, those guys were good ball players, man. Those guys were good. I like those guys, man. Great scrape lane guys. They were good ball players, those dudes. Okay? Those guys were good, man. Hey, Jordan Hicks, Kendricks, and Bradham, those guys, that's a good group. Those guys could all ball, man. Not over the top like Roquan and them guys, but that's a good group. How about this? That's a talented group. I'll tell you this, that 17 team compared to your linebacker group now with Christian Ellis and these guys that you have now compared to that group, no close. No, thank you. Okay? No, thank you. That 17 team, they were superior there at linebacker. That's a good group, dude. Huh, interesting. I don't think there's any coincidence that Roquan Smith goes to Baltimore and solidifies their defense. I don't. Buffalo, here's what I say about the Bills. This is my Super Bowl pick to play against the Cowboys. B-, 5-4. But I would say this to you. Way too inconsistent, man. 5-4. Quarterback's having a great year. Their defense is not looking good. Okay? They're just not looking good. We're great at developing linebackers, but then we don't re-sign them. Dirty D, what linebackers have you developed that you've drafted? Can you name me one? Can you name me a linebacker that you drafted? When you say that, can you name me a linebacker that you drafted that you developed? We develop stud linebackers who end up on other teams. Like who? Who did you draft? What linebackers have you drafted? That's one of the biggest failures in how he's drafting has been backers and corners and truly edge rushers. UDFAs, okay, fair enough. And free agents, sure, that sounds right. But drafting, you don't have a very stellar record under Howie Roseman at linebacker and corner or edge rushers, or for that matter, receivers. So don't make it sound like that guy's been slammed again. Okay, I mean, welcome to the group of the NFL guys. Okay? Buffalo's got to be better, man. Maybe B- is too high. Probably C. I'm going to take that out of there. Do more C+. Because I think they've underachieved. That's too B anything is for the Bills is too high. Carolina, 1-7. That's a total F. Hey, and by the way, it looks like they missed on the holy grail at quarterback, doesn't it? They took the wrong guy. Look at the difference here and the fates of organizations. The Houston Texans chose the right holy grail and C.J. Stroud, and Carolina chose the wrong. But what's the problem with Carolina? Look at the equity they gave up to move up to get him. Look at the draft choices that they lose because of that movement to get up and get Bryce Young. You're basically losing 2 1s when you do that. And that is the disaster of this whole conversation here. And why that Carolina, if you're David Tepper, the owner, you're looking at this and going, shit, this is in that Trey Lance kind of conversation. Okay? I mean, absolutely ridiculous. Chicago's a shit show. Total shit show. thing's an F, 2-7, going nowhere. Cincinnati, it's a funny grade here. What would you give Cincinnati? I'm going to give it a B. I'm going to give it a B for Joe Burrow because right now they're one of the top 3 teams in the league, the way they're playing. I think the defense is coming around. Jesse Bates, they lost him in the offseason. I think they had to come around. Hey, guys, do me a favor. What's the defensive coordinator's name? Anatello? What's his name? It escapes me. The DC in Cincinnati. I think he does a really nice job. And I think it took them a little bit of time to overcome that Jesse Bates loss because he was a good player. Lou's a fantastic defensive coordinator. And he's figuring that thing out. Cincinnati 5-3. Get this. See, look, the record really doesn't dictate how good that team is because of situations of injury. No excuses, like you guys say, and agreed. It's part of it. Okay. That 5-3 record, they play more like a 7-2 team right now to me. That feels more 7-2. Cleveland, get this. I'm shocked they're 5-3. But that 5-3 record, you know what it feels like to me? 3-5. Because of the inability of the offense. They're hanging there at 5-3 because, hey, Myles Garrett played in Philly or Dallas or Chicago or New York or Los Angeles, you would be throwing his name around for the MVP, not just Defensive Player of the Year. You'd be talking about him as an MVP. He has had a sensational season. Where is he in the sack list? Myles Garrett has 9.5 sacks at the halfway mark. This guy's on pace for 20 sacks on the number 1 defense in the NFL. I mean, he's on pace for 20 sacks. That's insane. It's how good he is. Dallas, here's what I say about your Cowboys. And the people that come in here from Dallas, and I know many of you watch the show, they're 5-3. I'm sorry, man, but at the halfway point, here's my diagnosis for the Cowboys. You can't beat contenders. You can't beat them. Name me a contender you beat that could win the Super Bowl. Name me one. Actually, name me one contender that you've beaten in 2 years. Actually, name me one contender that you've beaten in the last 30 years that were Super Bowl contenders. You don't beat Super Bowl contenders. You beat the Jets and the Giants. Did you see that point spread for this weekend? It's 16.5. That's something you see when you see like Alabama playing Vanderbilt. Okay? That's when you see point. You don't see 16.5 point spreads in an NFL ball game. It just totally shows you the incompetence in New York. Watch New York make that game close. Dallas Cowboys, my assessment of you at the halfway midterms, you can't beat contenders yet. You can't be considered a contender if you can't beat them. Get this. People would go, the Eagles really, yeah, but they beat Miami. They beat the Cowboys. They beat some of these teams that people consider contenders. And they win. I'm not going to disparage that. And I'm not just going to gloss over that so that people can justify the freaking Cowboys. They beat no contenders. This game coming up, Kansas City and Philly. This is a powerhouse game. Any one of those teams can win a Super Bowl, even if one of them loses. Even if one of them kind of gets beat by 10 or 11, they could still win it. Okay? You can't beat contenders. And what makes it crazy is that Cowboy guy convinces himself he's a contender. You're not a contender. Funny thing is national media will call the Dolphins and Cowboys contenders as soon as the Eagles beat them. They're all of a sudden become pretenders. But you know what? You know what Philly does? Philly puts the realization into that they're pretenders. And I hold to that. You beat them. You have to get credit for that. That's awesome, man. Thank you, Chuck, from Ireland. I appreciate it. That's really cool, man. Dude, you can't. Oh, so the Eagles beat the Dolphins. By the way, the Dolphins are going to win the AFC East. Okay? They're probably going to win the AFC East. Is it Denver? I don't know. Hey, Cowboys grade? What would I give the Cowboys for a midterm grade? I don't want to make it too. I don't want to make it too rewarding. Because what are you celebrating? You're 5-3. You got your shit pushed in by Arizona, San Francisco, and you got beat by your division opponent and the leader in the clubhouse at the halfway mark. C plus. That's probably as generous as I. Dude, B and A, you got to do something special and have them. What has the first half of the season? Show me something that Dallas has done that was special in the first half of the year. I'll tell you what the Eagles have done. They've righted the ship. They've beat 2 contenders. Dallas can handle Hollywood. Can have Hollywood. I'll take the Super Bowl runs. Brotherly, absolutely. You're a football team. They're a freak show. What has Dallas accomplished in the first half? Let's look. What have they accomplished? What have the Dallas Cowboys accomplished in the first half? Thank you. Hey, 34, thank you. I appreciate it. That's a very kind compliment. We got a lot of talented people, though, but thank you. Gary's TV ratings. Mario, probably true. Okay? Probably true. I don't see it. Denver. I kind of think Sean Payton. I'm going to give him a C plus. The Cowboys. That's as generous as I can be. Denver. I think they're kind of riding the ship here a little bit. They're 3-5. I don't believe they're going to make a playoff run here, but they've kind of righted the ship a little bit here. I'm going to give them a C. I think they're riding the ship. They're kind of slowing down the bleeding here a little bit. Detroit. They got a huge win against Kansas City. They got blown out by Baltimore. They're 6-2. I'm going to give that team an A. I think they've had a really good first half of the season. Their midterm grade, they should get an A. Green Bay, 3-5. Jordan Love's not the guy, man. That's a D plus. They're up and down. It doesn't look. I'll tell you this, man. This Houston team at 4-4. This is going to sound crazy. I'm going to give them an A. D'Amico Ryans has done a brilliant job. He's coach of the year, man. Nick Caserio, the general manager, I can't believe that they've turned the Houston Texans around. Way to go, man. That's a nice job in the first half. Who would have thought they'd be 500? Indy, 4-5. Outstanding job by Shane Steichen. Quarterback goes down. Stupid shit with Jonathan Taylor at the beginning of the year. Has to deal with that pot-pilling maniac, Jim Irsay. I got to give him a B, man. They've done a nice job, even though 4-5. Doug, Trevor Lawrence is playing great ball. They're 6-2. You got to go A here. Kansas City, Chiefs. Am I wrong when I say this? Am I wrong when I say this? Kansas City's a defensive football team now? I would give Texans a B. They are about 2 or 3 games on that schedule should be wins instead of losses. They could easily be 6-2. I think they're figuring out who they are. I think they're figuring out they're good. Can I tell you who the Texans are now? The Texans are the Jags of 2 years ago under Urban Meyer. They just don't know they're good. And they are. Jags get an A. Doug, outstanding. Kansas City, A. Raiders, complete shit show. Front office is a disaster. Disaster. Okay? CJ Stroud versus Trevor Lawrence twice a year will be amazing. Absolutely. Hey, get this. You know who I think the second best quarterback in the NFC East is? Sam Howell. I'll tell you what, every time that guy plays against Philly, he is. The Chargers, I mean, why when I look at the Chargers, I gave the Raiders a D. Who are you taking? Who are you taking on defense coordinator, Jim Schwartz or Spags? That's a great question. That's a great question. I'll answer that in a minute. Let me write it down. DC. The Chargers, why do I look at a 4-4 record and feel like that thing looks more like 2-6 or something? I don't feel that's a 4-4 team. I gave them a C plus, I guess. Rams, I thought they'd be better. They're 3-6, D. Miami, hey, I mean, dude, you're 6-3, B plus, I guess. But you're one of those teams like the Cowboys. I mean, you got to beat a contender. You can't beat Buffalo and you can't beat Philly. Wake me up and knock on the door when you beat somebody that's important. You couldn't beat Kansas City last week in London or Frankfurt. Minnesota, B. That's a great job of coaching up there, man. They're 5-4. I pray to God Josh Dobbs gets it done. New England, F. Awful. 2-7. It's not out of the realm of possibility that they're the worst team in the National Football League. Let that resonate. The Patriots are the worst team in the league. Wow. You got the winningest coach in the history of the National Football League with the worst team in the league. 6 years ago, they won 5 years ago, they won a Super Bowl, right? That thing 5 years ago, they won a Super Bowl. Am I right when I say that? New Orleans, C-, underachieving at 5-4. I thought they'd be further along. You got a shitty schedule. Where are you? The Giants, brutal. 2-7. There's another awful organization. The Jets, I'm going to give the guy a B, man. They're 4-4. I can't believe it. Aaron Rodgers goes down. Their season did not implode. Pittsburgh, 5-3. How are they doing it? Oh, wait, let me get it right. Who's the coach? Mike Tomlin. I'm giving you a B-. I have no idea how you're doing it. I have no idea how they win like that in Pittsburgh. 49ers. Hey, the honeymoon's over, Brock Purdy. You get a B, but your second half was going to define whether or not you may be the future or not the future of that organization. You've had a nice first half. Little bumpy end, the tail end, getting into that halftime number. You got to pick it up. Seattle, outstanding coaching, B+. Tampa Bay, 3-5, Bills due. The Super Bowl bill is due. And Jason Light, the GM, is paying the Bills now. That's why that thing's a shit show. I feel bad for Todd Bowles. 3-5. That thing's going nowhere. D+. In Washington, white flag's been raised. What can you say about a team with a white flag? They're 4-5. It's good coaching. It's keeping that thing afloat. But they waved a white flag. That thing, they've waved a white flag here. All right. Guys, don't forget, Tone, our friend, is going to be throughout the next couple hours here of the program. He's going to be throwing a code word out to you. Our good friends at Hooters. It is Happy Wingsgiving for the month of November. All you have to do is identify a code word, send us your information, DanSilioShow@gmail.com. You get a chance to win yourself some gift certificates, some merchandise. We'll name the name of the winners on Monday, a football Monday, and we'll start the process again on Tuesday. So you'll see that code word. Email us, DanSilioShow@gmail.com, and you may see your name as a winner on a football Monday. And that code word will be out there. That code word got me real good yesterday, Tone. So I totally dig that. By the way, Tone's going to join us at the bottom of the hour real quick here. Don't forget also, it is, like I said, Happy Wings Giving for the month of November here. Great specials. The iconic Hooter girls want to thank you for all what you've done by going into all the locations. Ice Cold Coors Light drafts, $2.99, 25 cents of the purchases all go towards a local charity. The 2024 Hooter calendars are out. There's $100 in coupons that are in the calendars. You can get those at northeasthooters.com. That's northeasthooters.com. Lunch specials, Monday through Friday, 11:30 to 3 p.m., boneless wings. Happy hour, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6. 6 items, $6. Try the fried pickles. You'll absolutely love them. Tuesdays, buy 10 wings, get 10 boneless free. Wing Wednesdays, $19.83. Go to northeasthooters.com. That's northeasthooters.com. And when you're rolling in any one of the facilities, do me a favor. Tell them Big Sil sent you.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.